So Kumusha Takes Wiki. Kumusha Takes Wiki is a whole new kind of project using a whole different kind of model to draw content and people into Wikipedia. It is a project that is co-run between myself and Florence, and the reason why we had this lovely coupling is because we're trying to work across the two big language groups in Africa that kind of divide Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa anyway, the Francophone and the Anglophone grouping. Okay, so let's get started. So Kumusha is a word that comes from Shona. I'm a Zimbabwean, and whenever anybody wanted to go anywhere, or when somebody was going away for the weekend, you'd say, I'm going Kumusha. And it's normally about the place that somebody comes from. So their origin, their place of origin, or the place of their ancestors, or the place of their identity, their core identity. And so we've decided to kind of open it up a bit to also include something that you identify with, so a passion or a shared interest or a community that draws you together. So it's definitely about community and about a communal identification. So what is it? Kumusha is the whole point of Kumusha is to flip the idea of Wikipedia and Wikipedia content creation on its head. So to try and pull contributions from people who would not ever normally consider and would never be necessarily the focus of Wikipedia. So to create, so to train so you can see, but the main points of this are to train an individual to drive a project in their country, and then to encourage people from all different walks of life, but from specific communities, to contribute their knowledge about their community. So it's about sharing and collective sharing of their knowledge onto Wikipedia and to the Wikimedia projects. And to encourage donation of digitized statistics and materials and archives from institutions, and then to train and build a supported group of Wikipedians within that country. So it's the what is the activating communities. The project concerned are all the Wikimedia projects and OpenStreetMap projects. So we're also leveraging the aligned projects across Africa and specifically in these two countries. The duration is for 1 year. It's in Uganda and Cote d'Ivoire. And how is to organize events and activations by specifically created Wikipedians and community with a focus on specific communities. And it has been funded by the Orange Foundation, or the Fondation Orange, and Creative Commons, who provided some money for the training aspect of the project. Okay, so the methodology was quite clear. So first of all, we had to see what information actually exists on Wikipedia on these two countries and identify the gaps. And then we had to research the information that exists off Wikipedia on these two countries as well, and some way try to find between those a focus for the project. We also looked for the right persons and trained them in the open movement, and in Wikipedia in Cape Town in February and March. And then we chose the criteria for the selection of the communities, and then we chose, researched and approached each of those communities. And currently we're using different methods and tactics to get those communities to contribute to the different projects. Each community has a different way of working, and each community requires entirely new tactics and slightly different modus to try and work it out. So everyone is a new approach. So we've achieved this much. We're mid-project at the moment, and we've achieved all of this so far.
Can I do a small
Yes?
introduction?
Please don't read all of that. It is not necessary. We actually put the information there because we will put, well, it's on the Google presentation page. We will put it on the beta comments afterwards. So there are all the references, information about it. But it's just to give you the general direction of the project and where we are right. Okay? So what has been done?
So essentially we have gone through the training sessions, we've got people back in their countries working with the communities, and we're currently in the process of training those communities. Each of those communities have different cycles, and so that's the basis of where we are now. But going backwards, we worked on research. The initial project over Christmas and the first month of this year was to look on Wiki and to research off Wiki as well. So the goals were to find out multiple levels of information that is on Wikipedia, and the results, and I don't want to get into the results because it is immense. I mean, it's an incredible document that's not confusing to put in, and sometimes in some cases it can be quite confusing, but it is a really interesting discussion about how Uganda and how information and Haddow-Flood and how this information is represented and what those things mean on Wikipedia. The off Wiki, we wanted to find out multiple levels of information that exist about countries, whether we can put that information is, in what kinds of organizations sit with that kind of information within the country, and what kind of categories of information should we look at to create like an essential country overview kind of idea. But we also looked at the different types of media, we researched the different, many different communities that exist within both geographically placed and interest-based, and we also looked at many kinds of, we've got basically the results are a 16-page, 16-sheet database that you can access in the first thing, and then there is also a document that final report on this.
It was surprising because, in particular, the first person who did the research in January, I expected that he would publish the information and talk to the community about it, and he didn't. So we will need to do a little bit of information about this. So, just to summarize a couple of key points that you might have missed, perhaps, because we have two different approaches. No, we have two different approaches on this. I really wanted to link the OpenStreetMap community and the Wikipedia community on this project. In particular because I discovered the OpenStreetMap project not such a long time ago, and the two communities are actually most of the time separated, even though they work in the same direction. So most of what she described as Kumusha area is meant to describe a geographical area or the culture related to this geographical area. So all the projects we set up, the community we approach, are somehow related to this. So after we did the research, we had to find some people. Unfortunately, none of these two guys, well, woman and man, are here today for many different reasons. However, the person on the right-hand side, Syriac, is from Côte d'Ivoire, and is very well known in the tech community and open source community. It's called the chief of village. The chief of And the funny thing is that we have today some members of the Ivory Coast community here, and in particular the guy is in the other room presenting something else. That's Samuel, what is yeah. So Samuel is actually here representing Ivory Coast right now instead of Syriac. But they work together and they share this Facebook group and all these things. So it's another direction. So there was already a community there, and we could approach them, and we received many different propositions from members to become our representatives somehow. It was very different for Uganda. We could not identify any community in Uganda. So it was editing community or even interested people who really knew the topic. We could find some people interested and involved in Creative Commons, but not in Wikipedia. So it was a little bit more challenging to identify Irina. So she's younger, and Irina is going to be involved very in 1 month, something like this.
Which is why she's
So
not here.
this is why she's not here. But she's a fabulous girl, even if she's not here. Yeah. So these are our two people. So the job these two people will have to do, these people already met some of you. I don't know if you're, you're here and here and here, there and here, yeah. All of you, all of them met in South Africa in February to have a 1 month training, intensive training. I was not there, so I'm not sure, but I was told it was intensive, yeah. So training in Wikipedia, Wikimedia Project, Creative Commons, open source movement, and all these things. So I think it was the first one, the first training, so we hope there will be many others in the future, so it was a first step. All these people together, creation of toolkits at the same time, and identification of training content. And Asaf, one of the things we could identify is the training content for Wikidata is, well, non-existent. There are basically some links, a few videos recording of people doing presentation of Wikipedia about 1.5 years ago, but nothing more than that. So that was one of our big challenges. You could find plenty of things on Wikipedia, plenty on Commons, but basically none on Wikidata. So it was one of the places where you can help. Okay. That was the first thing. The first thing was the research that she explained. The second thing was hiring the people and training them. The third was to identify the community we wanted to work with. And the reason we decided to do that is that in most projects done, either the people focus on the educational communities, schools, libraries, or they identify on GLAM, museum, libraries, and so on. In our cases, we wanted to identify on other types of community. So what we did is that we established a list of criteria that were important to us. Again, don't read that. You can read afterwards if you want, to do something equivalent. So we identified some criteria which were important to us. So for example, one of the criteria was we wanted this community to have the ability to provide some nice visual images, something nice to look at. Or we wanted this community to be able to provide information from a geographical perspective, such as mapping an area. And of course we involved the Wikipedian community in this, because if they already know some communities, well, it's easier for them to work with them than with people they don't know anything about. So after that, we identify about 10 to 12 communities for each country. So this is the list of communities we selected in Uganda. So for example, one of the community is an area, the Valley district, with the coffee production. Another community is a fishing community in an area near Lake Victoria. There's, because I'm a fan, there's a cooking project going on there with the Kampala Food Network. We also added a little bit about university and GLAM because we could not resist doing this. But the idea is really to focus on community that we don't approach very often. We have selected 2 examples of these communities. So this is the one she started working with, the coffee production. And for example, she mentioned who she would meet and who she would try to organize something. So the basic idea is for Irina, in this case, to approach these people and to train them first, but also to organize some activating event, depending on the community. So it can be an editathon, it can be a mapping party, if it's in a street, it can be a cooking party, if it's related to cook, it can be a cookbook. So depending on each community, the events will be different, and the idea is that it will not be a one-time, it's not working anymore. It will not be a one-time event, but rather something that will proceed over time. Second example is the one related to universities. So this is a much more traditional approach that many of you have already met. So this is these are two pictures taken from training session that she already organized. I don't know why it's try again. It's working. And here are some examples of the community we have chosen in Ivory Coast. So some of them are common. For example, you could find the cooking communities again, though it's a different country, obviously. We also have, for example, a border town. We also have a fishing community. But for example, it's not coffee which has been chosen, but cocoa. Cacao. Cocoa.
Yes.
But he also chose, for example, some communities he already is aware of and has already been working with, which are prisoners, a community we rarely approach in Wikipedia, or street kids. So it's a little bit of a challenge for us because these communities are very different. It's again down. So we'll see what will come out of that. And maybe we can both say separately what we think are the current successes and the current challenges of the project. So, do you want to start with the success?
No.
Sure. Okay.
I think the training course was a particularly good success. I think just the amount of going through the process of teaching a core group of people about the open movement across Africa is a very interesting process in itself. So it requires you to map it, it requires you to find the organizations and the people who are driving it. It requires, Kelsey did incredible work in bringing people who are doing just insanely inspiring stuff from Cape Town, which was lucky, to bring them to teach us all about the things that. So it wasn't just centered around us going, this is what you should do. It was about real case studies coming from people who are working in it and experts. And then it was also about finding out what. So it was also a very good way of finding out what toolkits actually exist out there and how they can best be used for this kind of training. So not just for training for this project or for the other projects, the Wiki Entrepreneur project, but also for training for when they go back, how do they train people and how is it possible to keep them going. So that was very important. It was also important for people to share stories and to work together and to create networks. So similarly to what we're doing here, but they're on a very intense place. They lived in a house together, so they were with each other all the time, and they had to walk 30 minutes in a kind of a relatively white suburb, like traditionally white suburb. And Michael had this fabulous statement that they would get followed home all the time by the security kind of companies. They called themselves like speed bumps because all the cars would like slow down just to check that they weren't up to any good. It's a terrible thing to say about South Africa, but it was quite funny. And I think that that kind of network is very important.
Michael wanted to be Michael Jackson at that time. Like the spin.
Yeah. So I think those were that was an incredible process. And then the challenge has also been how to run this project remotely. So how, when people go home, how do you keep people motivated? How to keep people on track? How a lot of Irina is experienced, but she's quite young and is approaching communities. It's not an easy task for her. And all of those things, like to break through some of those comfort zones or some of those barriers to things, personal comforts. And then, of course, we've had like the problems with electricity and communications and speaking on Skype to the rest of the world, but not her, and all of those kind of things. So there's been some very, very interesting challenges from that point of view, but there's been some incredible stories as well. So, and just seeing somebody uncover things. So the first meeting she did with Makerere University, was with 60 people. She was training 60 people, and afterwards she didn't know what she'd done, and I don't think they had any idea what she was doing either, because it was just too much. So we told her, no, just bring it down to, but they were so enthusiastic that 60 people turned up. And I think that just shows like the kind of the level of enthusiasm if you hit the right chord. Yeah.
I have another success to mention. I think the people we found are great. One of the challenges for me is that I never met them, not even today. So it's not obvious. Well, we all know that as Wikipedians that we work with people from far away, but well, it's still a challenge anyway. In particular when Skype is so bad. But well, we manage. One of the challenges I currently meet is the problem of tracking contribution or tracking account creation. And one of the reasons why is that sometimes they have a training session with only one computer. So it's not so much that we ask them to create 5 accounts and each of them contribute from their account. The problem is that there is only one computer, so they are just together around the table and they talk, and why it's working very differently from what we do in France, for example.
But then also teaching, you have to like Wikipedia, you have to occasionally do it old school.
When the connection goes down, they train you in Wikipedia without accessing Wikipedia. Funny thing. The second, another challenge I would mention is that since we are having a 2 languages project, it's only 2. I know there are many other languages in Africa, so it's only 2. It's not so obvious because we are all the time wondering, I am all the time wondering what I should translate in French or put in French. For example, Syriac English is not great, so all the messages I send, I always send them in 2 languages. But when we want to publish information about what we did, should I translate it each time, which takes time? So it's not so obvious to keep that up to date. So I'm still not quite decided how I should deal with that. Yeah. So for example, we created a wikiafrica.net website, and everything is in English over there. Yeah. So I should probably set up some French pages, but it's not done yet. So it's not so easy. The other thing is that beyond the French and English issue, some of the community we chose, they don't speak English nor French anyway. So there was this odd moment where Syriac went for an entire week to visit the fish community, the fishermen community, not the sinners community. And when he got there, he had no internet, no electricity, and in any cases, they did not speak a common language with him. So he had a translator all the time to communicate. These things on the way, and we hope it will be positive and constructive in the end. The good thing, I think, in particular in Ivory Coast, is that there was already a community there, and these people already had a Facebook area. They were already meeting. They already had some training session last summer, and the thing that was impairing them to progress was actually time to organize sessions, time to organize editathon. So I hope very much that Syriac will have this opportunity to just help them further go on the path they are currently following. This might be more challenging for Erin, I think.
Okay, I think that pretty much covers the project. It is still in, so we don't have a huge amount to show as far as content that's been created because it's still in production. And from now on, we're hoping that it's just going to increase as the project gathers momentum, which will hopefully go beyond the end of the project, which is in December. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I have 2 questions and an offer of help. But first, I wanted to comment on Wikidata. You said that there's very little training material on it. That's true. I think largely it's because there was no institutional attention paid to producing that material because Wikidata is still rapidly evolving. In fact, it's in somewhere on the way to deploying phase 2 of at least 3. And so there's kind of a feeling that if we go to the trouble of producing very nice training materials, they may well become sort of out of date and incorrect and inconvenient. And on the other hand, the moment we do produce materials, they will probably get translated, and so you just compound the amount of work that will get lost. And so I think that's one reason. Obviously, still, people do need instructions and people do need materials.
Something a little bit basic.
So yeah, that's the thing. So we're not really doing anything about it for now. I'm sure some people are doing write-ups and blog posts and things around Wikidata, but we are likely to put in some effort to producing those materials at least after the stage 2, the info boxes stage of Wikidata. So that's about that. So my question is, at the risk of sounding a little one-track-minded, about the fourth target, the community building, the leaving behind a community that will, a supported community of Wikimedians. And I realize you're only somewhere in the middle, but are you seeing signs of the likelihood of attaining that goal? So that's one question. And my offer of help is, you mentioned that you could not find editors, active editors in Uganda. I can. I'm aware of at least 5, and I'm happy to share them with you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so sustainability.
So one of the main things, to answer this question, one of the main things in crafting this project was to create a kind of sustainability. So a section on this was that there's no point in creating this project unless we leave behind a core community that can continue the project in some way or form. So to create, both Irina and Syriac are tasked with creating wiki meetups, and every second month they do a formal wiki meetup, as well as they do like 4 different training outreach, depending on what community they're focusing on and all sorts of things. So from that, Irina had to start really quite at the beginning. I mean, she had to start at approaching people, and we're hoping that as she gets through the outreach sessions and the work with communities, more people will be extracted, come to her. But the first wiki meetup that she held at a local lab, a hub in Kampala. There were about 12 people turned up, and they were all very keen. So, I mean, it helped that it was in that kind of space, that it was advertised through that hub kind of environment. They're all tech, savvy, so it wasn't trying to convince people to write a course that they've never done so before, that kind of thing. So I think there's definitely willing, and we are definitely, we have to make sure that they're done, because otherwise there's no point in doing these kind of projects if you just walk away. And then for Syriac, I think because the open movement is a bit more established in Côte d'Ivoire, we were surprised actually by how well established it was, to the extent to which it has been established. And I think that I don't see it failing after I think he's still going to, he is just one of those people who will continue even when he's not paid, so yeah, I mean, he has problems with submitting invoices, but he does.
One of these
it's like, please, can we pay you?
the problem is receiving invoice. That's the important one. There's another thing. There's also the OpenStreetMap community, and in both countries it's already quite set up. In particular in Uganda, it's already quite well organized. So I think it's another thing that might get impacted somehow and be pushed a little bit. There's something else. It's that it hasn't been done yet much, but we hope that in choosing very specific community, we managed to do some big word advertisement around this, so that it could be opportunities to talk about it in the media. So it could be useful not only to get some contributors, but just to get the project known around, just so that the people read and are aware of the project. I realized this morning when I was listening to Adele that, for example, we haven't pushed so much the information that there was Wikipedia 0, even though we are funded by Orange. So it's a foundation. So just by setting a reminder that it's available for free through the provider, on the Facebook, on the blog, maybe on the press. Sierra know quite well to the people working in the press, in the media. So I hope it will also have an impact in terms of visibility. I don't know yet for participation. The thing I know is that some of the communities, such as the university one, there was one museum which was approached and so on. I'm pretty sure we will manage to grab a few people at least to contribute. Now the fishermen community, not speaking English, nor French, nor a language that I can understand, not having internet, not having, I doubt it. I don't see how they could become a contributor. But if we can at least gather a little bit of content, it will at least create some pages that help kickstarting. Uganda is not so bad on the English Wikipedia, it has content. There's stuff about this. Ivory Coast on the French Wikipedia is really, really limited. So I don't think we can do worse. Yeah, so some of the places we chose on purpose are a little bit touristic area and direction. So I hope it also helps because it will put some light in some places or museum. So hopefully it will do something. But yeah, no promise for now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
internet back and forth?
Yeah, we're in the back.
Okay, cool. It's like a bet.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, and it seems to be a question that's going around, and I'm not trying to put you under fire and ask you to answer it because I can't answer it myself, but we have the same issue. I wonder if we might just think of other ways of getting kind of like, firstly I was wondering how do you go in and pitch this type of project, because obviously you want some kind of buy-in at a local level. With the Wazi, we've created a kind of brand identity and we had caps and we do kind of promotional things, etc. But I mean, is there another way we might think around people seeing value in this kind of digital resource to record, you know, aspects of local cultural history or what have you? I mean, I don't know if and I'm just wondering what your approach is in terms of obviously going through local people to try and get them, they connect. Not exploit, that sounds bad, but they have the local networks in place. But just in terms of a kind of shift in mentality, and it's a tough thing to break. I don't know if
One of the...
Should I?
I've always been a big fan of cooking.
Yeah.
I don't cook myself, but I love people cooking for me.
You like to eat good food?
Yeah, the good food, yeah, I think that's it. I was one of the first to put some recipes in French many years ago, and they removed most of them. That's very sad. But one of the things, typically, when we were discussing with Irina, she obviously likes cooking as well.
Yeah.
So she knows a circle of people who are doing this type of things. So we thought if she can, instead of just meeting from time to time and working on doing a special dish, they can meet together and they take the opportunity to record the recipe or maybe the various versions of the recipe. They take some pictures of the dish whilst they're all doing it.
Sure.
They can take some pictures of the thing they are using for this, and maybe of the people eating afterwards if it's a party of anything. And then to create a book, a Wikibook. So in this case, it wouldn't go on Wikipedia, but it would go on Wikibook, so that we can create a book which is about the culinary habits, the main food that they have over there, maybe some information about how it is grown, which are the crops, taking some pictures of market, whatever, something related to cooking in Uganda, whatever that might mean. And you have an outcome in the end, which is a little booklet that you can print or not print, whatever. But the effort shouldn't be so big, since they already do this meeting and they already share these recipes on Facebook or elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's more an approach of saying, this is something you're already doing. Let's add a little piece on that. We take pictures, we record it, what that is.
So instead of focusing on the end point, saying let's get this in somewhere or share it, focus on what they're. We did the same with people who were doing beadwork. So we found one person who was doing beadwork in the community, and then you tap into that kind of vein of different interests, and then that's how it works.
That's an example.
Yeah.
Hello, I just want to also add. So the whole point of choosing communities was that we weren't trying to, again, invent the wheel. We were just trying to get those people online.
And so the networks and the kind of the human interfaces already work. They're already there. They already exist. Whether it's a formal association like a coffee growers association, or whether it is actually like the Food Network or FemRights, which are much looser kind of passion-associated kind of ideas. So the whole point was to try and activate passionate people within those communities to then drive the project. So Irina, in a sense, acts as like a facilitator rather than the content creator.
Yeah.
So she's just trying to activate people in order to relay their passion. So I think it's I think it's just about spreading the word and trying to get, but also having somebody just overseeing, making sure that okay, we've done this, but these are the other options that we can do, and this is there's another extent, So we've created a book on cooking, but then we can also add some information to the cooking, to cuisine in Uganda or restaurants or whatever it is.
I give another example. It can complete this one because obviously this is, I think, going to work well in some cases and not so well in other cases. And the approach needs to be fine-tuned each time.
Yeah.
Syriac suggested that we could add the prisoners community. I mean, none of us are at fault of the prisoners community. He already worked with the prisoners of a certain area. I don't remember for which reason he explained, but I forgot. But he already know the director of the prison, and what he proposed, he knows that the people there, they are there for a certain time, and they are usually not doing anything, and they have trouble to find job afterwards, so they want to take the opportunity to train them just in using computers or doing stuff like this whilst they are in prison. So what he proposed is something which is a little bit of a mix. At the same time, these people are trained on how to use a computer, going on the internet, so given the basic of new tech. And at the same time, he tries to collect from them and get them to talk about maybe the place where they are in prison or the reason why they are in prison, this type of things. So it's something being mixed with another approach.
And the thing is that it's all up for grabs, if you know what I mean. We're trying several different approaches to see what works. So there's no one model that we go in, they create a book, it's every single time it's a different tactic.
Cool. But I think you're having that local kind of entry point is the way to go.
They have to own it. That's why it's Kumusha takes Wiki and not Wiki takes Kumusha.
Should I ask if there are any other questions? And if not, then we can hand it back over to this. Sorry.
Because
anyone?
we might have a transition thing to talk about. I don't know how you want to approach it. The transition thing.
Are there any other questions?
Florence has a plan.
Florence has a
I have a plan. I don't know. Are there other people talking after us before we all need to get
No,
as well?
we got a break.
Okay.
So there are no other people talking.
Okay, so we do a soft transition thing, and then you talk more about it after when everybody's there. Sure. So whilst we were, one of the things we decided that could be within the activating events was a photography contest. Well, you all know that Wiki is a monument, and there are many other photography contests, whatever. So we thought of Wiki Loves Africa, so something which is rather on the entire African continent, knowing that we could push it very much in the country where we are already located, not only for Ivory Coast and Uganda, but also Malawi and Ethiopia, which is the first one, and South Africa, of course. All these places. But then we thought we need to probably focus on a theme, and a theme that could change every year rather than the problem with Wiki Loves Monument is that in most African countries there is no list, or if there is a list, it's a rather colonial list, so it was not so exciting. So we thought this year to propose something related to cooking, because we were doing the cookbook in the 2 languages. So that would be something related to the food, the dishes, the marketplace, maybe some public events where people are having good food together. Something related to this. Yeah. So that would feed the cookbook.
There's a project which Michael Peel told me said they did this a couple of years ago in the United Kingdom, where they actually had a challenge. I don't propose doing this in all of Africa, it's been a question in all of Africa, But they had but it might work in some smaller countries, or in a place like South Africa maybe, where the challenge was to photograph every square kilometre of the United Kingdom as part of a mapping exercise. So if you want an ambitious project,
That's very, very ambitious.
very ambitious, that's an idea.
Yeah. So she will present it afterwards, but I can already tell you some of our challenge with this. The number one challenge, again, will be to track contributions, in particular because it will probably be that most pictures will be uploaded from cell phones. Even if we locally organize some visiting or maybe participation to special events and uploading in a special room, which can be done in university, otherwise it will always be uploaded through cell phones. So we might need help on this.
Or even an adaptation of the Wiki Loves Monuments app would help, you know? And I think it probably isn't required because of things like Wiki Loves the Planet and Wiki Loves.
Well, there's a Commons app as well.
Yes, but then how do we tag? Then that would have to be tagged, and a lot of people who would be adding wouldn't be okay with the competition, you know, with the categories.
We've got a question over there.
Just staying on challenges, I come from Malawi, and internet is extremely problematic. How do you solve that? Are there any thoughts or ideas or?
I don't know. I mean, I think one of the I'm ignorant about this, but is there a way of doing like a semi-upload? So you could upload to a local server and then import them later. Really? I don't know. Because it's a problem also with things like with offline Wikipedia. So if you could have, you know, so within universities you could have like a closed network where all prisons, you could have a closed network where you're adding information, and then that's ported in a, you know, during like a downtime, between like 12 and 2 o'clock at night or whatever it is, so that there aren't those challenges as such. I don't know. I mean, that might help, but I don't know if it's a possibility.
I was just going to say, I know of no such system for Wikipedia, but there are definitely systems out there which allow you to record data, take pictures, and then as soon as you get to a Wi-Fi spot, it just automatically uploads it to where you want it
So
to
it
go.
might be something like a... And the same thing that we have also with OpenStreetMap.
Solution.
Yeah, Cameroon has this. I don't know.
Cameroon has a solution. You have an uploading place.
Yes.
Yeah, so in some places we have an uploading place.
Is there a way of bypassing the main ISPs?
No.
Is there a way of bypassing the ISPs from Malawi? I don't know, maybe it's cheap satellite
No.
ways of...
Well, then unless you're using satellite. Unless you're communicating the satellite directly.
You can, yeah, there are a few options. I don't know why you might want to do that, but there are a couple of options there. you could have a satellite, or you could use lots of like a Tor network, which masks IP address. That's if you just want to do IP address. But I'm not going to go too deep into this.
It's not allowed, that's why.
It's possible. It's possible. It's allowed, but then you have to pay hugely expensive amount of money for communicating.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is the CD and the authorization.
Oh, yeah.
You need written authorizations.
Yeah.
So the problem is that
Yeah.
the director uploader qualifies as authorization.
Yeah.
So
But that's why I'm inventing that if there was like an intermediary space where they've done that, they've said yes, absolutely, and then they upload to that, and then it goes off somewhere else.
But also for freedom of panorama, I was thinking Namibia could be very interesting because you can actually check web.